worked with, and it's a joy to see you all tonight working on businesses and most of all boosting the Maine economy, which I get really jazzed about. So I'm really glad to be here with you all tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Lori, if that's okay. And I'm hoping you can all see that. Now, here's the trick. When I share my screen, your faces go to the side, so I won't be able to see you all, and also I won't be able to see our chat together, but I will be stopping in the middle of my presentation here and there to make sure that I have everybody still hanging on and check and see if there's any questions and just grab some clarification if you need it. So I will be breathing and pausing as much as I can. I will be reviewing the business model canvas, which is a tool that I wish I had been introduced to when I first started my business. I didn't actually get introduced to this tool until I went to a Maine entrepreneurs meeting, and Nancy Strajny from SCORE introduced the tool to me. And so maybe she's introduced that tool to you as well. And if she has, great, this will be a wonderful overview. One thing that I want to clarify is that there is no way I can possibly go over every aspect of the business model canvas, how you can use it, and in what industry you're in, what type of business models. There are many, many, many of you on the call, and you're all running different styles of business, whether it's a service business or a product business or manufacturing. So I'm going to be talking very general and kind of a blanket training tonight. But if you have specific questions or if you want to reach out to me later, I'm always available. Lori and Terry know where I live, and I'm always happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. So who created the business model canvas? I want to make sure I always give credit where credit is due. It's a guy named Alex Alsterwalder. I have taken many, many, many years to learn how to pronounce his name correctly. Alex Alsterwalder, and probably like 740 of his geeky friends have gotten together and created what has really compacted that 30-page business plan that makes every entrepreneur sweat when we're asked at SCORE if we've written a business plan. But this makes it a living, breathing document that we can literally hang on our wall. In fact, I don't know if you can see behind me, I have mine printed out in a huge poster board that I utilize all the time with my clients. Now it's going to fall over on me. That I utilize with my clients all the time. I have one personally of my own business model printed out. I use sticky notes and Post-its, and I use different colors, and this is how I kind of lay out this business plan on a one sheet of paper. So what I really, really, really love about the business model canvas is it takes away that intimidating 30-page business plan document. You still need that if you're going to go in front of investors or angel investors or to a bank. You should still go through the exercise of defining your business plan. But the business model canvas can be that daily piece of paper that you refer to when you're making decisions, or when you're writing your marketing pieces, or when you're thinking about the value that you bring to your clients, or when you're negotiating a new channel to deliver your products or services through. So this is a document that you would refer to all the time. When we go through the business model canvas, I like to start in the upper right-hand corner of the canvas, and I start with the customer segments. I like to travel from right to left on the canvas, and I also go counterclockwise. Maybe I'm the only person who does that. There's a million different ways that people have taught this tool. If you Google this tool, you're going to find books and videos and documentaries and case studies. So we all do it a little bit different, but I always start with customer segments because I always start with the customer in mind. What problem do I solve? And that is really where I want to start. How I'm going to go through this canvas with you tonight, I'm going to go through an overview, then I'm going to go through an example, then I'm going to dig into each of the 9 segments, and then hopefully we'll have time at the end to ask some personalized questions and utilize some real world experience in this example. Then I go to customer relationships. This is how do we serve our clients? How do we interact? How do we connect with our clients? Our channels, how do we deliver our products or services? How do they know about us? How have they heard about us? So if you think of a channel as a two-way street, it's how we deliver and how they know about us. The value propositions are why do they care? What are we providing? What makes us different? Are we solving a problem in a unique way? Are we meeting a need that has never been met before? Or if we are meeting a need that's been met before, are we delivering it in a more convenient or better way? Key activities are what we do that support the value propositions. And so therefore, it's more about the act of what we are doing to support what's meaningful to our clients. So it's not necessarily, well, I do bookkeeping it's on our task list. It's not necessarily what we do to operate a business. It's what we do to operate this particular business model. And we'll go into that in more detail in a few moments. And the key resources, again, are what are the key resources that your customers care about the most, and what are the key resources that support your business model. Once again, we'll get into that a little bit more later. And key partners are the people who help you attract, gain, and maintain your clients. Attract, gain, and maintain your clients. And of course, cost structure, what we have to pay out. So payroll, manufacturing costs, advertising costs, subscription costs, anything that costs us money to operate this particular business model. And then, of course, how do we make money? Because isn't that why we're all doing what we do? So I'm going to tell a little story, and I'm probably going to hack this story because if you Google this story, there's like a 20-minute video. I'm not going to go through this for a whole 20 minutes, but I'm going to tell a story about Nespresso machines. Everybody knows what Nespresso is, right? They're little coffee pods, and you put it in a machine, and you get delicious cafe-style coffee, right? So Nespresso came up with a business model where they were going to their customer segments, and their first customer segments were businesses. They were sending out traveling salespeople to different businesses and saying, hey, would you like to have this machine in your business and you can have cafe-style coffee for your employees? And they're going to love being able to have coffee right at the workplace. You're going to have higher production. You're going to have increased employee satisfaction. And so they set it up so that it was, they would rent the machine and they would have to get the coffee through the distribution channel of the salesperson would come back and refill the order for more coffee pods. The channels was direct sales. So they literally had salespeople going business to business and selling these coffee machines or leasing these coffee machines. And the value proposition, of course, was we have these machines, we have these coffee pods, and you're going to have increased productivity. People aren't going to be leaving work to go to Starbucks. They're going to drink delicious coffee. They're going to love it. It's going to be awesome. Their key activities were, of course, production of the machines, sales of the machines, and distribution of the machines and of the coffee. The key resources that they had were the patents on the machine. This was the first time that a machine had a single-serve coffee pod, a single-serve coffee being made from a coffee machine. And of course, the coffee and the coffee pods were patented. And the inventory that they had machines in inventory, and they had the production facilities. And then they had, for key partners, the people who helped them attract, gain, and maintain clients, they had the machine manufacturers, they had their coffee growers, and they had their sales force. And of course, the cost structure, the stuff they had to pay for, production, commissions, warehouse and logistics, and business-to-business distribution. And how they made their money was repeat coffee pod sales and the Nespresso machine lease. So it looks like a pretty good solid business model, right? It's pretty good. They should be making lots of money. The unfortunate part about this entire business model is it was a monumental fail. Why was it a fail? They misjudged their value proposition. So what they were finding was the salespeople were going back to the businesses saying, okay, so you want to reorder more coffee? And the person was like, no, actually we still have coffee pods left over from last week when you were here before. They stopped drinking the coffee because nobody wants to wait in line in a conference room waiting for single serve coffee to go psh, and you wait for the coffee and you wait for the coffee. So the employees went back to just serving the potted coffee that served 12 to 20 people because it was more convenient. So they misjudged their value propositions. They weren't making the money. Plus, the other part that was hurting them, that was kind of taking them out at the knees, was they had a massive warehouse full of inventory. And the other part, one of their key resources, was that patent was expiring. And they started having competition just eat them up in the environment. So they had to revisit this business model. They almost scrapped it. They almost said, we're not going to make money at this, so let's scrap it. But they went back to the drawing board. They went back to, okay, if not them, then who? So remember, we start at the upper right-hand corner of, did we get our customer segment right? Did we make the right assumption about customer segments? And so they went back to the drawing board. So reiteration number 2, some years later, they came back and they said, well, who really wants our coffee? Who wants cafe-style coffee in a convenient way, hot, fresh, always yummy? That would be households. So they started targeting households, and then they built their business model based on the household customer segment. The customer relationship was acquire and lock in. Once they bought the machine, they had to buy the pods through Nespresso because no other pods fit the Nespresso machine. The channel that they bought the Nespresso machine from was retail. They figured that it was much easier. They didn't have to have a warehouse full of these machines. They went through the route of establishing relationships with retail vendors, and they got the machines out to the general public through retail like Macy's or JCPenney or wherever, so that they would buy the machines in a retail setting, but they had to go online to buy the pods. So they had to go direct to the company to buy more of the pods through their mail order or call center or through Nespresso.com. And in some countries, in the bigger cities, they actually have Nespresso stores that you can walk into and enjoy a cup of Nespresso and just enjoy that whole experience. I'm sure it's lovely. Post-COVID, we'll all be doing that, I'm sure. So the value proposition still is they still have wonderful Nespresso machines. They still have the Nespresso pods. But the value proposition has changed to quality cafe coffee at home. It's convenient. You don't have to run out to Starbucks to get delicious, yummy hot coffee, served in an individualized way. Their key activities kind of remain the same, except for they reduced their sales force. They still do production and marketing and branding, and they now do business to consumer distribution instead of business to business distribution. Their key resources, they still have a patent. It is expiring, so now they have competition. They still have their coffee, production facilities, marketing, and branding. They actually up their marketing and branding because they now have higher competition. And, of course, they still have their distribution channels, but their distribution channels have changed from direct sales to retail. There are key partners in helping them attract, maintain, and gain clients. There are their manufacturers, their coffee growers, and their retailers. And their cost structure is now still production, marketing and branding, business to consumer distribution. Their revenue streams are repeat coffee pod sales, and they make their money on one-time machine sales. So by revising the business model, by going back and looking at, who is the person who really who are we solving a problem for? And changing that one thing, and then changing every aspect of the business model after, and saying, okay, what do they really care about, and how can we deliver services to them? What's the most convenient way that they can get the machine? They don't want door-to-door sales. That went out with the encyclopedias and the vacuum cleaner salesman, right? So they changed the way they distribute, they changed their channels, and they became profitable once again, and they're still around. They still supply awesome, amazing coffee, and they have competitors. Competitors in this space are not such a bad thing, because you can always say, I'm better than the competitor. So this is the point where I take a breath and I just ask, are there any questions in the chat? And Lori, if there are, just shout them out for me.
We don't have any questions right now, but does anyone have any questions?
I have one question.
I knew someone had a question.
All right. So at what stage did they find out that it wasn't working for them? Was it
it was almost too late. So according to the story, and this is a story that is shared in business schools everywhere, and I'm sure you could actually Google and watch the YouTube video. They invented this product in 1977. They didn't get the distribution channels and the at-home retail distribution until the 90s. So it took them longer than it should have, but they used this as a case study because it was such a dramatically different shift of who their focus was. Same great product, but they shifted who the consumer was and how the distribution worked. And this just kind of outlines how the business model canvas can be used.
I have a question if there's time.
Sure.
Yeah.
In looking at this in the website, it was kind of interesting to see that play between customer segment, and you mentioned that as a starting point, but I feel like that and value propositions have a major interplay. So how, that significantly changed their value proposition, and on the website it talks a lot about that value proposition kind of being the cornerstone by which you build a lot of these areas. So can you just kind of talk about sort of thinking about the interplay between customer segment and value proposition?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm teaching the tool, I'm often starting this tool with someone who hasn't narrowed a niche. And many of you have. You've done excellent work in understanding that you can't you don't have the time, money, or resources to market to everyone, so you're marketing to someone. And Top Gun has really prepared you for that. In some of my client scenarios, they haven't let go of the fact that they could be a service to everyone. So I have my clients start with defining who their customer segments are. But you are absolutely right. You have to solve a problem in order to be a business. And otherwise, you're not of service. Even with a product has to be new, it has to be innovative, it has to be interesting, but it also has to serve a purpose for someone to buy it. So the value propositions and customer segments do run hand in hand. But when I'm starting with a very, very new company, sometimes they think that, well, everyone needs my awesome, amazing widget. And sometimes that's true. Tech companies can certainly market to a broader audience. Like, a lot of people have an Apple phone, but a lot of people have a Galaxy phone. So what makes their audiences different? So that's why I have my folks start at the basic of who do you serve and what problem do you solve for them. It does run hand in hand.
And if I can just chime in just for a quick second for the entrepreneurs wondering about how this all fits together. As we work through Top Gun, we're going to be doing things like customer discovery, strategic marketing. These will all start to make a whole lot more sense as we work through these topics. And you'll be like, oh, I can fill this in now. So this is just the introduction to this tool that we hope you'll be using kind of throughout the life of your business.
That's a perfect point, Lori. I always explain too that the business model canvas is like when you're putting together a picture puzzle, and you've got the picture on the box, and you've dumped out all the puzzle pieces, and then now you're assembling them. So Top Gun is going to give you all the puzzle pieces, and then when you have all those pieces, you're going to put them in this framework so that they all make sense, and you can look at them logically. And so, yeah, like I said, it would take years to go through and say, okay, now we're going to go through customer profile, which actually is my next slide. Then we're going to talk about how to create those strategic partnerships. Thank God you have Top Gun. That's going to give you all those puzzle pieces, and they'll all start fitting together. So this is just the box on the puzzle box, the picture on the puzzle box.
And I'd like to add something if I could, Priscilla.
Sure, Terry.
So I use the business model canvas in my business all the time. I've used it with brand new startups that are just have an idea, and I've used it with $5 billion companies.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had a case where going through the conversation of how does your business model work, where people haven't somehow reacted and gone, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's something I need to pay attention to. So this is a tool that is useful forever in your business.
Absolutely. And that's a great point too, Terry, is that I didn't discover this tool until I was 6 years into my business. And once I started using this tool and having this visual in front of me, I started to profit. I started to narrow down who I wanted to work with. I started to be more efficient, and I created stronger partnerships. So there's so many benefits of having this picture in front of you more often than not. So great point. And yes, it's for startups. It's for companies that have been in business for years and years and years. It doesn't matter where you are and where you are on the journey.
Can I ask one more question? As we're going through this, it seems like something you should iterate through a lot. And I'm just curious, are there certain questions you should be asking of yourself as you evaluate, okay, I've filled it out for today. How do you go about self-evaluating to make sure that you're not leaving gaps or missing things?
That's an excellent point, and I'm going to cover that a little bit later in my presentation. But that goes through the testing and retweaking phase. And so, yeah, I will answer your question in just a few moments. Great segue. Great segue. So ideal client profile. So this is a very handsome stock photo that I pulled off the internet. But this is my ideal client. It's a person who works in the trades, and this is my business. This is who I tend to work with a lot. And I actually keep this person's persona in my mind when I'm building my business canvas. When I'm sure Top Gun will go over your buyer persona and your client journey. Those are all separate tools. Like I said, those are the puzzle pieces that fit into this. But you really do want to take some time to think about your demographic and what their needs are, how they communicate, where they hang out, are they on social media, are they on YouTube, are they buying things in a store, are they impulse buyers, what type of person are they, so that you can really be best friends with them and anticipate their needs before they even maybe know what their needs are. So my client, I just wrote the pain point of, they're doing it all. They have employees, but they don't give them enough responsibilities. They're very much doing what they're very active owners in the business. So if you could take some time to create your buyer persona, that's a great start to putting together those customer segments. So let's talk a little bit more about customer segments. Customer segments help you identify the people that you are essentially working for. They should really get you excited too. You should be really excited to help the segment of people, and think about jumping out of bed every day to work with these folks, whether you're providing a service or selling them a product or giving them a result. It should really fire you up as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure it does. Otherwise, I don't think you'd be here, at 6:20 in the evening, talking about business models. You should understand the problem that you want to solve, and you should understand their specific needs. So, customer segments, do you have more than one? Yes, you could. You may have several customer segments in your business model. So in other words, a business like a magazine, if they were selling a magazine, they would have their subscribers, their readers, and they would have their advertisers. Those are two separate customer segments, but they're for the same business. And so you would do this work for both customer segments. You would anticipate their needs. You would anticipate how you deliver your products and services to them. And that's why I say we color code in the business model canvas. I like to put each customer segment in a different color, and I like to put value propositions that match that particular customer segment in that same color. And if it's for both, if a value proposition serves both customer segments, I usually just blend the colors, like blue and yellow make green. And that way I'm a very visual person. I love to color code. So if color coding is your jam, that's kind of how I lay things out. You would have separate customer segments if their needs and they have different needs and they require a distinct offer. Obviously, the subscribers to your magazine and the advertisers in your magazine they have two different pain points. They have two different needs. You would have two different distribution channels for them, potentially. You might have some of the same. Sometimes you can reach everyone on social media, but your messaging on that social media channel would be different. They would require different types of relationships. So you may need different different key partners that would support them, and they would have different profitabilities. The people who are advertising potentially pay much more than the people who are subscribing, and they would be willing to pay for different aspects of that offer. So the advertisers are willing to pay more because they're getting a different and greater value potentially than the readers or the subscribers. And in customer relationships, we want to identify the touch points and the opportunities, and we want to conduct research on their experience. So we're looking at it through their lens. It's not what we think they want, it's what they think they want. So you want to understand their purchasing behaviors. Are they impulsive? Are they researchers? Do they want a lot of text on your website, or do they want clear, easy, clickable text, and they're not readers and they know what they want when they see it? Do they need to, where do they spend their time, and where do they tend to purchase from? And you can find all of this out by doing research, and Top Gun and your mentors will teach you how to do customer research more geared towards your particular product and service. But it's really important that you do that work so that you really have an understanding of where you should be spending your valuable marketing time and dollars on trying to attract these folks to your products and services. And then you have to think about what opportunities do you have along the way of servicing your clients. So some examples of customer relationships are like personal assistants, dedicated personal assistants. So in other words, so as a coach, I provide personal one-to-one coaching, but I also provide articles and videos that are still me, but it's not dedicated me. It may be self-service. There's a lot of DIYers out there who like to do things themselves. It may be an automated service. So in other words, Shaw's Supermarkets, I assume, has done some research to find out that there are some people who enjoy going through, picking up a pint of Ben & Jerry's while wearing their sweatpants and running through self-serve checkout and not speaking to a single soul. There's a whole customer segment who really enjoys that automated service. And then there's a whole segment who does not enjoy automated service. So they still have their checkout clerks ready to help you. So they've segmented their customer segments based on that. There may be communities, so there's a lot of community-based customer segments that you may have different neighborhoods, or you might have communities of like military or communities of different backgrounds. So you would have different segments that way, and you would have co-creation. So co-creation would be building something together. You know, let's create a website together. Customer channels are how you deliver your services, and it should be unique to each customer segment. So you're always tying it back to the piece before. So when you're delivering to a subscriber of a magazine, it's going to be a different delivery system than you would be to an advertiser of that same magazine. You have different channels of delivering your value propositions to your customers. And you want to have these different channels because they serve different purposes. You know, you're raising awareness amongst your customers. You are helping your customers evaluate the company's value propositions. So in other words, if you have a great social media channel, that's giving your customers a direct link to be able to evaluate your company in real time. You want to make it super easy for them to do that. You also want to have, you're allowing your customers to purchase specific products and services. So anything that makes it so that you understand their habits and you're anticipating their habits, you're putting your products and services in front of them when they need it at the right time, at the right place. And also the customer journey continues from beginning to end, and you want to be able to anticipate how you're going to provide post-customer support. You know, survey links, those sorts of things. And once again, we're already to the middle of the board of value propositions, how you help. We want to think about how innovative is the product? Does it solve a problem? Does it disrupt a already existing service, like Uber disrupted taxi service? Does it create a whole new way of getting services to this particular customer segment? Does it provide a bundled service that maybe has never been bundled before? So you can get, Geico, home and insurance and car all in one bundle, And does it satisfy a need that they particularly have? And then the key activities always tie back to what do your clients care that you're doing, or what do your customers care that you're doing? In the business model itself, on the piece of paper, I don't write out my task list of like, I have to do bookkeeping and paperwork. Obviously, I have to do that to run a business. I have to do that to run any business. So don't overcomplicate your business model, but you should list out the things that are very key to running your particular business model. Perhaps I heard somebody say gluten-free products. Maybe one of your key activities is sourcing those gluten-free organic product ingredients that you put into your products, and that is one of your key activities that you do. Maybe you are doing research and development on certain products that is really important to your customer segments, and they really, really care about the results of what you're doing. So this is where you should really list out what's important, those key activities that you're providing. It helps you in your marketing, and it helps in clarifying your messaging, and it also helps you create those value statements. And then the key resources are what you have. And again, it needs to matter to your customer segments. If you Google Business Coach Maine, you're going to find a ton, pages and pages and pages of business coaches. But one thing that I find that my clients really appreciate that I have is I have an office. Of course, COVID has kind of taken that proposition away, that value proposition away. But I do have an office in South Portland where my clients can meet me face to face. And my clients, because I work with folks in services and the trades, they really appreciate that. That has been something that I've been told over and over again that they really appreciate. So I continue to pay rent in a space because they appreciate being able to meet me face to face. If I had a different type of customer segment who didn't care so much that they could meet me face to face, I probably wouldn't pay for a rent and spend that additional cost to maintain that. Key partners, who helps you? So who helps you attract, gain, maintain, and retain your clients? So you want to think about strategic alliances, your key referral partners. Maybe, for folks like me, bookkeepers and CPAs and I work hand in hand a lot, and because we refer work back and forth to each other. If you have a product, maybe it's product placement. You would want to have your cakes or muffins placed near a coffee shop, and so you would create a strategic alliance with those folks. If you always look at, like, Dunkin' Donuts is always paired with, oh gosh, it's escaping my mind, but you'll notice that certain fast food restaurants are always next to each other. Taco Bell and what's the other one?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Thank you. I don't eat at either one of those, but I know they're always together. They have a strategic alliance because they know that they work well together, and their customer segments will congregate in one place, and so they always strategically align together. Joint ventures, again, promoting each other's products, buyer-seller relationships, and referral networks will all help you strategically place these people so that you're not only getting the most bang for your buck in your marketing, but you're helping elevate another business and they're helping elevate yours. And to have this on your business model canvas, this is probably the most helpful piece for me because I do provide a service-based business. It's always helpful for me to think about who do I need to connect with, who do I need to maintain relationships with, who do I need to spend time with, what relationships do I need to nurture. All of that will help boost your potential and help you manage your time effectively as well. So, and then lastly, well, we're not quite yet, but revenue streams, what you get, that's the good part. You get money, hopefully, for selling your products and services, but there's a lot of different ways that you can earn money, and I'm sure Top Gun will review those ways with you. But there's assets, there's usage fees, there's lending, renting, leasing, licensing, brokering, advertising, one-time occurring. And then there's also different business models that you can lead people in with, which I'm sure they'll review with you as well, like freemium, you give it away and then you sell it, or subscription-based, or evergreen, so there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can think about how you would earn money, but it's really very important that you clearly define on your business model how your money is coming in and from what customer segments and from what products and what value they're actually paying for. So when you're piecing all these together, you're going to draw those lines and connect those dots. And using this as a visual reference will help you understand how is the money coming in, and more importantly, how is it going to come in tomorrow. Cost structure, again, there's tons of different cost structures, and some companies operate lean, others operate with a heavier cost-driven cost structure. Some have heavy emphasis on labor, some have a heavy emphasis on overhead. So you have to really determine what are the most important costs for your business model. Again, once I found out that my clients really, really appreciate meeting me in person, one of my heavier costs is the rent for my office space. Otherwise, I could probably do my business with a laptop and a phone. So back to, is it Joy who asked this question? Sir, how do you test this, right? How do you know you got all the pieces? again, this is a living, breathing document. You're always going to be using it. You're always going to be taking stickies off it and putting stickies on it, and you're going to be revising it. And in the first, you're going to be revising it quite often. I'll review with you why you would want to revise it in just a few moments, but you're going to want to survey your customer segments. So ask your clients and your customers what's important to you. Hey, I think my new gizmo is really, really awesome. What do you think? And that can be really scary. And when you're opening yourself up to feedback, it can feel very awkward. And as Lori mentioned in the beginning, when we're receiving feedback, it can hurt because we're presenting our baby to the world. But one thing I learned early on is to never fall in love with my own marketing, because oftentimes my marketing kind of falls flat and quite frankly sometimes sucks. and I have to learn the hard way that I care more sometimes than other people care, or I think it's cool and they don't. And so we really want to go out and track and ask and survey, do customer analysis, go through and research your client base. You want to track your trends. If you ever want to read a really cool story about tracking trends, Holy Donut, they have it down pat. They've been amazing. They've eliminated their waste, like I think 95% was her last numbers, where she tracked what donuts sold on what days, what was the weather, what games were playing at the Sea Dog Stadium. I mean, she tracked to the point where it was a little insane, but they only throw out maybe a tray of donuts instead of racks of donuts because of her tracking. So track trends, capture data. When do you get the most leads? When do you make the most sales? And that's really going to be important data for you to do forecasting. And it will also tell you if you're on in your assumptions or not. You know, test these hypotheses and are you right in thinking, yeah, people do want to drink, you know, cafe style coffee at work, or are they happy with a coffee pot circulating around in the break room? And then you want to invest in testing. You know, sometimes if you have a product, especially if you're an inventor, if you've invented something, you probably want to invest in that prototype, and you want to invest in the testing of, do people really want what you have, and is it really solving the problem you think it's solving? Sometimes our inventions actually innovate and turn into something else. Like, I think it was the story of Post-it notes. He was actually trying to invent glue, and he ended up inventing Post-it notes. Because it didn't solve the problem that he was actually trying to solve, it ended up solving a different problem. But he wouldn't have known that if he hadn't done the prototype testing. And crowdfunding will give you social approval too. So if you put it out and say, hey, who wants to buy this? You know, pre-sales now, you can kind of get an idea of how many people actually dig your product or not. Okay. When would you want to revisit and revise your business model? You want to do that at least yearly, if not more when you're first starting out. I'm not saying crumple up the paper and throw it away every time. I'm saying tweak and revise. So don't go back to the drawing board or scrap everything, but sometimes it's a tweak and revise. I had to do that in 2020 because I was very tempted to pour all my efforts of sales and marketing into online because everybody else was. And I had to really study my business model and really think about my customer segments and say, are they really going to search and find and want to purchase from me if I do online marketing? And I really had to explore that answer in myself, because my panic response was, pivot, 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 go online, go online, go online. You know, I got to offer everything. And when I calmed myself down and stared at my business model for a while, I was like, no, you know, the guys I work with, and I say guys, we're all guys. I'm a guy, you're a guy. Guys I work with, they're out in their pickup trucks. They're busy, you know, on the field. They're going to continue to do that. Nothing's going to change. Their world hasn't changed much because of the pandemic. So I had to adjust what I was offering to meet them where they are. So Make sure that you're constantly, it's so tempting to just do what everybody else is doing because that's what but you have to really look and say, where are my clients right now? What are they doing right now? Do I really need to change what I'm doing? So it helps calm me down a lot. So the times that you do want to revisit, revise, if your sales drop, if there was a drop without a reason. Obviously, a lot of our sales dropped this year because of pandemic. Okay, there's a reason, we can kind of gauge that and we can shift and adjust. If there's new market segments, maybe a whole new crop of people are popping up who would want your services or your goods. If you need to make a reduction of waste or create lean systems, maybe you're not being profitable enough, and so you have to find a way to be more profitable. If there's a change in your competition, maybe you have a new competitor in your marketplace, or maybe one of your competitors has dropped out. Or if there is a change in the environment or market behavior. There's a recession, there's a pandemic, what's going on in the marketplace that may have created a shift, and just, it may not mean that you have to change, it might just mean you have to say, what are my clients doing in response to the shift? Alrighty, we're burning through it, Lori, I promise. So when you have it completed, this is what it's going to sort of look like. These are little explanations. Obviously, this is really teeny tiny little writing, but this is available for download and print, and I'll make sure Lori gets all these slides and screens for you. But when you're complete, you'll be able to look at it and say, okay, what's my next move? What are my clients doing? What do they need? What do they value? What am I providing? Am I doing the activities they care about? And am I making money? Or am I spending too much money to provide the service or products that I need? So a quick overview of one that's completed that we all are fairly familiar with, good old Uber. Uber has two customer segments. They have passengers and drivers. They have to market to both because without drivers, they don't have passengers. Without passengers, they won't have drivers. The relationship they have is it's highly automated. You don't have to speak to a soul. You don't have to touch any money. You don't even have to look at your driver if you don't feel like it. Although you should, and you should also make sure that they have the Uber sticker on their car. But the channels, again, media apps, social media marketing, they spend a lot on their social media marketing and their PR. And the value propositions are, they are a disruptor, taxi on demand, short wait times, passengers on demand. You can make money driving in your own car. We could never do that before. Their key activities, they have provided an awesome platform, probably one of the first of its kind. They're marketing to balance supply and demand, and they have driver onboarding. And then the key resources, obviously their Uber platform, first of its kind, their pricing algorithms, that's a formula that they own, and their routing algorithm, again, is another product that they own. Key partners, they need drivers who own cars. They need payment processors because everything goes through digitally. They need mapping providers because everything is GPS driven, and they need their local authorities to be on board, to support. They had to fight with taxi drivers and the gold medallions and all of those things. They had to change the minds of how we provided the service. A lot of the marijuana distributors have come. I've done a few of these business model canvases with marijuana distributors, and I say, before you do that, you're going to become lobbyists. Before you open your business, you're going to become a lobbyist, so that you can change the mind of the consumers that are in your industry. Their cost structures, obviously, they receive money from the driver. They pay the driver's payments. They pay for their sales and marketing. Their revenue streams are the pricing that they get from the riders. So here we are. I'm running up on time, but I do want to field questions if we have time. Lori, we still have time?
Absolutely. We have a few minutes. For follow-up questions, we do have a question. Does this model address approach to pricing?
The approach to pricing. Yes and no. So your approach to pricing is always going to evaluate your marketplace and the needs and the desires of your clients. And so the demand, is there supply and demand? And you want to, I don't know if you're talking about pricing a service or a product. So sometimes there's a, what will the marketplace hold? You know, what are people used to paying? But if you're providing a service, sometimes there's a little bit more stretchy room there because it's more of a value. You're exhibiting value. So that's where your value propositions really come important play, is especially if you're providing a service. I always have to put my value propositions in my face to remind myself that I'm worth what I charge, you know, and that I provide an amazing value and service for my clients, and I have to remind myself of what they actually get. They don't get coaching. They get lifestyle, they get freedom, they get to experience their businesses in a whole new way, they get to spend more time with their family and kids, you know, all of those value propositions, and it's worth the fees that they pay me for my coaching. So if you're providing a service, your value propositions can help you drive pricing. If you're providing a product or an app, or you may need to do a competitive analysis to see what the marketplace will hold. Again, there's more tools that Lori and Terry and everyone at Top Gun are going to introduce you to. You're going to do competitive analysis, I'm sure. You're going to do marketplace analysis, I'm sure. If not, I'm sure your mentors can help you with that.